it exists, which is its poignance and at the same time its limitation.
It's a wonderfully distinctive voice, isn't it? Is it the voice of Jimmy Porter or is it the voice of John Osbourne? Quite a few times during the play I felt there was some slippage between the two.
Well, I think it was always the voice of John Osbourne. I think what he does in the play is line up the targets and shoot them down, and it's that exuberance and enthusiasm for vitriol and distaste that characterises. I mean, there are new targets now in this play. There's Europe, you know. There's AIDS galas, and they're kind of when the line comes about sort of strutting sodomites, Alison, his former wife, who's gone off. And takes part in these galas, and Alison, who's ironing at the beginning and throughout the play, is in fact Alison's daughter, who in fact leaves at the end of the play. I mean, John Osbourne is prepared to say the unsayable. Now, you can either say that's indulgent, and it's terrible old John Osbourne bleating away in the Cotswolds or wherever he lives these days. But on the other hand, you can say it's the voice of nonconformism. And I think what John Osbourne has always done is represent that voice. It's always been the voice of a monodrama as well. His best theatrical plays have always been crafted around the single voice, the single character, the breakdown. And Inadmissible Evidence may be the best. Look Back in Anger, and this Look Back in Anger Part 2 is certainly the second best.
Well, this is probably a good place to bring in Bill. I mean, as Michael
I like
saying,
Michael Coveney's review. I'm not quite sure about John Lahr's.
A lot of the targets are what are our sort of contemporary sacred cows in a way, and a lot of producers, as we've heard, did turn down the play.
Do you know, can I just clear up the bit of the nonsense that went on at the start, because it is important, and it's one of the things John rages about in the play. The play was not turned down by many producers. It was not turned down by many theatres. The Royal Court didn't want to do it. Peter O'Toole did not go into rehearsal, and I've said this so many times. It was being staged at the Liverpool Playhouse because I'm the producer of the Liverpool Playhouse, and the reputation that has been built up about this play is just silly.
Yeah, well, that's as may be, but
it's important. I think it's important to Peter O'Toole that if he's sitting out there and he hears somebody say, "Hey, listen, I walked out on a pen rehearsal," it's important that we say.
Well, we apologise to Peter O'Toole for getting that wrong if he's watching.
I've done that many times on the air.
But going back to the point, what were the qualities about the play that particularly appealed to you? What made you want to put it on?
I'm from Liverpool, and when I was a young actor starting out, my hero was Alan Owen. And Alan Owen always used to say, Liverpool people are rather like rubber balls. You knock them back down and they bounce back at you. I feel that about Jimmy Porter. I also feel it very strongly about John Osbourne. I love people who take a chance, who go for it. And he goes for it all the time.
You weren't worried at all about some of the targets that Jimmy Porter lines up in his play? Because, I mean, quite a lot of
I'm not going to worry as the producer, no.
But the theatrical types are roundly abused in the play. Foreigners. I mean, these are the people who make up the West End audience,
Who isn't roundly abused in the play? There's no one, even the characters who were... John talked about the most interesting characters being off stage. John Osbourne says in the play, the most interesting characters are always those that are off stage. He knocks modern music, he knocks football, the You'll Never Walk Alone section, all the things I love. But that's his rage, that's his voice, and I love his voice.
Yeah, Michael, I mean, can any play that's put on now have that same kind of impact that Look Back in Anger had? I mean, in a way, what Look Back in Anger did was it gave a voice to an unexpressed view in the theatre. And I suppose this does the same, albeit a very different sort of voice.
Yes, it's become older and sort of bitterer and sort of rather sort of tainted with other sort of spectator-like values, as it were. I mean, there's a marvellous moment where actually John Osbourne, Jimmy Porter, I mean, going through the press, picks up the Spectator and tears it in half, and then he picks up the Oldie, you know, and tears that in half.
But that seems a bit of a cunning double bluff in a way, or a sort of an escape clause, because people are just going to say, oh, this is standard Richard Ingram's Auburn War territory, the invective.
Yeah, but he outwrites Auburn War, John Osbourne.
And everybody laughs.
In his autobiography, he's much funnier, much more brutal writer than Auburn War, because he actually cares more deeply about things. And I think that comes through in the play. Invective is a stranger to the British stage. There isn't a lot of anger in new writing. There's a lot of kind of kowtowing to New Age values and the new morality. But it's quite good even to disagree with you don't agree with what Jimmy Porter says or John Osbourne says, but it's quite good to have it, and it's quite good to have it set in a theatre.
John Lahr?
Well, I just want to say that this anger that you talk about, in the original 56 production, part of the point of the anger was that it was sounding a note that a large part of the theatre-going public hadn't heard, and it was sparky, and it wanted to fight. Now, the thing I hear in this anger, although he's taking on fairly easy targets that actually he doesn't illuminate anything. The point about the anger is that it isn't actually going for coherence or ideas. Even he jokes about that in the play, but just to express itself, to get this thing out. There's a kind of almost moral exhaustion, which I think is interesting, but it actually it defeats itself in a sense. As he says in the play, at one point he picks up a trumpet and he says, "I've lost my puff, and the sound isn't appropriate." And that's, I think, true of the play itself.
So I think I can conclude from that both of you don't think that John Osbourne should have left Jimmy Porter alone. There's some puff in the old guy yet.
It's fascinating.
It's a narrow thing he does. It's a real knife-edge thing, being self-referential and writing a new play. And he sort of brings it off, I think. I think he's all the time saying, you remember this play, you remember me, and I remember what you thought about it, and here I am again, and I'm not going to go away. And he makes something of that.
Thanks very much, Michael Coveney and John Lahr, and thanks to you, Bill Kenwright, for bringing the play to the West End Theatre.
Thank you.
And Deja Vu continues at the Comedy Theatre in London.